choose your pain, choose Star Trek Weekly, but whatever it is, it's going to be fucking cool. Star Trek Weekly starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Star Trek Weekly. I'm Christian Bladt, not a holodeck simulation of Christian Bladt, but the one, the only, the actual Christian Bladt. You can find me at Christian DMZ. And Kari, where can people find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's Karidlane.
And I know that Frank's Happy Go Jackie, but I'll let him tell people anyway.
Oh, sure. Find me at Happy Go Jackie, guys.
See, look at that.
Yay.
And look, this just gave me an excuse to use a little-known Alice Cooper song called Pain, because the title of this episode was Choose Your Pain. Love the concept of Choose Your Pain. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about this episode, but something that I touched on in the little teaser in the intro is there was a little bit of an element, I thought, this week that, or I guess it's technically last week, episode 5, that I felt like it was a little bit like, okay, this is a little Star Trek After Dark. It was excessively violent in the prison, to the extent where I was like, they are going to town on the, okay, and he's dead. There was a couple of goddams, which was nothing.
Oh, there's a F-bomb.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. And,
There's two.
And I'm building to that.
Oh, sorry.
And that was the thing that surprised me, because this is I had a quick little conversation with a friend of mine on a YouTube video, my friend Tom Kelly. We did a couple Star Trek videos. And I was like, well, this isn't the first Star Trek F-bomb. I'm like, there's the swearing in Star Trek 4, the song on the bus. And I'm like, no, the song on the bus says, screw you. And the guy gave the middle finger. So this is the first verbal F-bomb in the Star Trek universe. And it didn't feel earned, like, at all. It was like, if you're gonna have it, I thought like a good, like, oh shit, like Spock cursing in Star Trek 4 is funny. It's oh, okay. I can't. There was a huge note on the screen. Scoot to your right, but I had to be told. Anyway, so it took me a little out of the moment, because I'm like, wait, what happened here? And look, I mean, it didn't ruin the episode for me. But
it was adorable with Tilly doing it, and like that's her personality of like saying it because she's so emotional and has no filter.
Right.
And so she's like, what? Oh my goodness, I said that word out loud. And then the affirmation by the other character is good, because then it's like, no, you're right.
Yes,
So,
the other character being, of course, Lieutenant Guy
thank
from
you.
Rent.
Yes.
Yes. Anthony Rapp is his
Exactly.
name, but I always think of him as Guy from Rent.
I know.
But Frank, your thoughts? An F-bomb in the Star Trek universe, it's not the end of the world. But I was just like, oh, was this the one? Was this why? Was this where we should have had it?
Yeah, I don't know, when you see it, when you bring up like the voyage home, it's like, having Spock, you reference it as like a colorful metaphor.
Yeah.
Is now the time for one of those? I'm like, I mean, I just felt like it worked well in that
All
film.
right.
And this one, it was just like, you're right, it just kind of comes out of blue, and it's like, did we get anything out of it?
Right.
I don't know.
And I mean, I think the violence in the prison isn't as disturbing. It's just, when I thought about the episode, there was the swearing, and there was, some excessive violence. I'm like, are they just going for something because they can, I guess, because it's streaming. Wherever you're seeing it in the world, it is on a streaming service, I mean, I think it's not on a broadcast TV. They don't have to worry about any of that. So I guess they're pushing the envelope, which is great for storytelling, but it kind of overshadowed the whole episode for me, that moment, and also combined with I think it was just one F-bomb, but then it's like, no, Lieutenant Guy from Rent is like, yeah, it is fucking cool. I'm like, isn't that cool? I mean, it's cool, but is it fucking cool?
Now, does
Let
it
us know in the
bother
chat,
you
by the way.
so much because of previous Star Trek episodes, or?
Well, I just think in 50 years of history, if you've never used the F word, and like, you just pick a good moment for it. It could have been in this series, it could have been like just, I don't know.
But the other thing too is maybe they haven't said it before because it was TV that they would
Well,
never have said
certainly,
it. So...
but they could have used it in movies. You know?
Yeah.
And then, I guess to some extent, I always think.
Or should they have made up a word? Should have been like Firefly, made up some other like.
Well, Battlestar Galactica would do that too, making up words, which they could have, but then that of course takes you out of it too. I guess I've always looked at Star Trek and Star Wars as a little bit more family entertainment, and I guess I'm just an old man who should probably move on from it. But I was surprised, is what it really came down to.
I mean, I guess if you're looking at the context of everything, I mean, they are discovering a new way of traveling, a new way of looking at journeying across our star systems, which I feel like is doomed to failure given where it's at. But,
Well, even where it's at the end of this episode, You know who didn't think it was fucking cool was the tardigrade. He's like, you know what? This is not fucking cool. Yeah. I'm actually not down with this.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we'll get into all of that. But I dove in on that, but it overshadows, of course, the biggest thing about this episode for anyone that's a fan of classic Trek would be the appearance of Harcourt Fenton Mudd, Mr. Harvey Mudd, which I thought he was played very well by Rainn Wilson. I mean, it's a different acting style, the original Harvey Mudd. It's character actor in a 60s network TV show. And I don't know, I feel like there's something more sinister behind this Harvey Mudd, and clearly he'll be back. And I'm kind of interested in the idea of seeing him as a villain. I'll ask Frank first, your thought on this version of Harvey Mudd.
Because I guess it all comes down to how strict you want to be able to follow Star Trek continuity. Right. And seeing a character drop like this in kind of seeing the early stages of him, which is great. Yeah. But do you feel like do you want to see him arc into looking like or at least acting like the 60s.
Like,
the 60s version of it.
I'd be okay if he doesn't look like that at some point. But you would. Although I do love anytime you can get the mustache. But I think the idea that he would act like that, it could happen. I mean, and look, at this point, he's deeply in love with Stella, who is his nagging wife when we meet him in I Mudd. So I think that it's cool, and I like Rainn Wilson. I thought that he was one of the better things about The Office, and this is a completely different part for him. So I had no problems with him being in it, with them wanting to put Harvey Mudd in it. This is something we mentioned, I think, in the first episode, that I knew Harvey Mudd was going to show up at some point. I knew Rainn Wilson was playing him, but it was one of the things I was looking forward to, and I found it did not disappoint me. Were you disappointed that he was in it?
No, I wasn't necessarily disappointed. I mean, I guess this is something that doesn't bother me as much as seeing like Starrick in it.
Yeah,
just because of the way how they've kind of loaded him and built him in with
and also Sarek was like in the first 10 minutes of the first episode. It was like, hey, remember this guy?
All right.
So Kari, as somebody who is not as nerdy
deep in the
as
universe.
We are,
I've not voyaged that far.
Though. You'd have to voyage all the way back to the original series.
Be far, yes.
What did you think of Rainn Wilson's character?
I thought he was very interesting and very cool. And I have no idea for the previous reference. I do think he would be back, and I'd be curious to see where it goes. And it was weird because he was likable and detestable at kind of the same time. Yeah,
and at the same time, I can't hold it against Lorca for leaving him behind.
No.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah. He's horrible and, sabotage them and everything. Yeah. But I'm not alone. Sarah in the chat says, I feel like a terrible Trekkie that I don't know who Harvey Mudd is, question mark. Renji in the chat said, I know very little about Mudd. So,
I think...
is he in a lot of episodes?
No, he's in 2 episodes of the original series and 1 episode of the animated series.
Okay.
He's the only character that's, not a main character. I guess that's not really true, but he's one of the few characters who shows up in multiple episodes.
Okay.
And I think he's sort of like a beloved character that, if the show had gone on if there were more than 79 episodes, you probably would have seen him again.
Yeah.
There were rumors he was going to be in an episode of Next Generation that just never happened. But... I don't know. Apparently, Next Generation writers thought, everybody's in cryogenic sleep and will wake up, 80 years later. So, he's only in 3 episodes before this, but there's so few episodes of the original series, and some of us have seen them so many times that you feel like he was around a lot. But no, he's not Khan. He's not like one of the best known characters from the series, but he's a great character, and I would say I'm pretty sure that the original series is still on Netflix. Anybody who's watching this, go ahead and check out. There's 2 episodes: I Mud and Mud's Women, and
I believe it's also on CBS All Access.
That's a great point. So if you're watching Star Trek Weekly legally, then but even if you're watching it illegally, you can also find the original series illegally. Not that we're encouraging that.
And I agree that his acting in it is great. From The Office, what's his name again?
Rainn Wilson.
Yeah. I thought he was great because I visualized him like, wait, what do you look like without that beard? Oh yeah. Then it was just
the glasses
different enough for
for
sure.
Yeah, and I think that like I said, there's something sinister at work. And look, he's looking out for himself. I can't say.
Oh, yeah.
I can't say that if I was. Given, if somebody came in right now, if Steve in the booth said, choose your pain, would I say, punch me in the face or kick Frank in the nuts? I don't know. I would hope that I would say, punch me in the face.
I'd be getting kicked in the nuts.
Yeah, that's
right.
And I can't blame him. I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
Semi-rewind, but from the chat, Michael B. referring back to curse words. There were a few curse words in the film, such as Data saying shit in Generations, but it was always used in a humorous tone.
Yeah,
it was funny in this episode, though.
No, it was, but I think it being the F word. So when are we getting the C word on Star Trek at this point?
F word by now is not that big of a deal.
It's true. I know.
C word still is. So.
Yeah. Well, that
will be a while.
That'll be a little while.
F is like it's also a very versatile word. It's an adjective, verb, noun, all those things.
Yeah, no, and you know what? They're even though they're before the original series, they're so far in the future. They're so much more evolved than I am. So clearly, I have to move on from it. But I'm glad people in the chat are still talking about it. Anyway, so we're going to see him again at some point.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not even like a fact. It's just, I don't know. You cast Rainn Wilson. He's good. I figure this season we'll see him. It's just a hunch. And I like that he's got an axe to grind with Lorca. Anyway, so there's a lot to talk about in terms of the overall. We really dove into the minutia, and I have more minutia, but I'll save it. Let's start with you, Kari. Sort of your thoughts on the center of the episode, which is the continued use of the spore drive, Starfleet wanting to put it in all the ships, and it's like, well, you got to use it, but the sweet little tardigrade, the Ripper, and do it anyway, and then look what he did. So anyway, just sort of your thoughts about that being that sort of central point in the center of the episode.
Well, I think that wraps it up very quickly. How we were all thinking, well, obviously it's not going to work because they don't use it later. So how are they going to wrap it up quick? Not surprised at all that it is painful for it, because it did seem painful the first time they did it. Like it
the
cried.
first time they did it, it was like, it's not like, oh, this is great. It wasn't even like a heroin high or something, or so I'm told. And
I do like the direction it went of, like, it made sense that they're at war, they need it, give it to us now, and they're not really thinking about it. I was a little disappointed that it's Saru.
Yes.
I'm multi-say, right? Yeah. I was like, how
you don't want to offend him. He's a big fan.
Yeah. I'm like,
Doug Jones.
Well, because I'm like, there's another thing on something else that's Saru on something else. But anyway, I was disappointed that he had no room for it might be in pain and it's sentient. And he's like, I don't care. But then again, he has I have to save this many souls on my ship and everything. So you're kind of like, but I'd almost be like, here, come look, watch, and see how much it's in trouble.
I think it's a good point. I think it's
clear.
like, look, hey, let's just, the computer, of course, films everything. Let's just take a look. This is what happened. You still feel okay with it? And I think he would have, because he was in a situation where he didn't want to let down his captain. Yeah. And we'll sort of get to the captaining of, acting Captain Saru. What did you think, Frank, in terms of, just pushing this creature in this situation?
What I liked about it was just in the conversation between Burnham and Saru, but then where it was very much butting heads, trying to get Saru to understand the consequences of what they're doing. And then when they actually go and do the medical exam and they go down to talk to Lieutenant Guy from Rent, and which I feel like that's all I want to refer to him now.
This just has to be his name now.
But I like that they quickly get on board with this. It wasn't like a whole episode where it was Burnham alone trying to change everybody's mind.
Right.
I did very like that.
And over like 4 episodes, eventually she's like, I'm still the one saying that this is a bad idea, but it did work, so I guess I'll talk more loudly next week.
I actually thought she would have done it, hook herself up.
Yeah, you know what? That is kind of interesting that she wasn't the one who did it.
Like, it felt like she was spelling it out. Like, we could use a compatible life form and be like, I'll do it.
But to be fair, she was confined to quarters.
Yes.
So, you know, and she's like, well, how many times am I going to defy orders, you know?
Yeah.
He said drop it, and she didn't, and they brought in the doctor, lieutenant guy from My So-Called Life. I actually don't remember the character's name at all on Star Trek. I've gotten bad. There's enough characters that I'm just like,
there's a lot right now.
Yeah.
I was curious though, because I do agree with Kari. I thought for a moment it was going to be Burnham, because certainly being the mutineer, not really falling as of right now
like,
in the Starfleet hierarchy.
Yeah.
She could have easily just in that moment just said, you know what, I'm injecting myself right there in front of servants. Like, you know, I'm out of the chain of command. I can just do this right now.
Yeah, no, I think
She already had a dream about doing it.
Yeah, it is interesting. It was a little surprising, and you know, you wonder how the writers, the creators came to the decision that it wasn't her.
It was a pleasant surprise, though.
Yeah.
See, that was one where
Maybe
it
that
wasn't
was
shocking, but it was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Because that's one other thing too, is that I felt like if while it was kind of set up to be Burnham, if it had been her, I can see the negative side of that too, because I don't feel like we know enough of the rest of the crew yet. We need to have them doing things as well too.
And there's also some negative effects that it'd be bad if that was her character instead of Lieutenant Guy from Ren.
We don't know. Negative.
Well,
that's kind of cool.
I don't know. It was very ominous.
Cool, Eyes.
No, that seemed ominous to me.
Yeah, there was something very ominous at the end that, you know,
that
by
did not
being a
look
part
like
of it.
yay. That
Yeah.
was oh shh.
Yeah, so I think that is probably ultimately why she wasn't the one to do it, because, you know, as you guys discussed last week, this show's going to be about her. You know, unlike most Star Trek shows that are about the crew, it's primarily about her. We've definitely gotten to see some nice interactions as the series has gone along. But, you know what, but I was going to say they're not going to kill her, but I'm like, or are they? Because, you know, nobody died sorry, guy in prison, nobody we cared about.
And the spaceship.
Oh, yeah.
The transport ship.
Yeah, that's true.
And which I agree if it's kind of her story and we're following her along, but I feel like wherever we get to the input, whether she dies or whether she doesn't, we're going to feel a lot more impact of what her decisions have on the crew if we know them better.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think that we're at least starting to see a little bit better interaction. Yeah. Since we're talking about Saru, let's kind of get to a nice scene towards the end of the episode, which, Kari, I saw that you said last week that was something that you were hoping to see. It was a very nice moment where she ultimately gave him the telescope that we saw last week, that Captain Georgiou left her, and the idea that, you know, he was just angry that there wasn't enough time for her to move on and for him to get to be her first officer. So was that sort of at least a little bit of what you wanted to see between her trying to be a person and actually treating him like he's not a person, but as a being?
Yeah, it was a very nice moment between them because both of them communicated, because she's like, why are you mad at me? Why are you scared of me? Like, is this really what's going on?
Yeah.
Confronts him about it, and then he finally is able to, like, unburden his, like, what he's been holding on to for so long of, I was mad, I was jealous, and then it's like, oh, good, we can move on. They're words, they're communication. And it was very sweet that I don't think for her that the object of the telescope is important, but not really. I think it was more her relationship that she will treasure. Yeah. So it's more symbolic to pass it on to him.
Plus, I mean, Tilly
would probably... a gesture.
Tilly would probably break it, you know.
She
so
could.
Just get it out of the room. You know, it's gonna be better that way. Frank, what did you think about that sort of what I thought was a nice moment between the two of them?
No, well, I appreciated the moment. You know, I also wondered, like, Saru, like, I was waiting for him to, like, that he didn't need that he was going to step up and, like, I don't need this kind of validation, that he's just going to leave the telescope. No, he just took that telescope and ran.
I know. I was like, I guess he just, whatever, you know, his species just doesn't have it in them. It's like, oh, I now have this gift. And not like, no, she gave it to you, you keep it. And it's like, I'm taking it.
Yep, I'm out. The other thing, too, that I thought was, I was waiting to see, as he's talking about the jealousy that he has, that he didn't get a chance to kind of follow under Captain Georgiou after Burnham would have moved on to captain her own ship, that just the contrast, like, he's not really happy on this ship. I was waiting to see if that would come up, because certainly, as we saw from last episode, or episode 4,
he's not thrilled.
Where he just feels like, you know, like his role is not as important as it would be if, like, he was underneath Captain Georgiou. I mean, Lorca keeps his own counsel, so I don't feel like he really reaches out to him and uses him to his fullest potential.
Well, it's a great way to transition to sort of another key point of this episode, which is Saru as the captain of the Discovery, and that this goes back to some great minutia, some Star Trek minutia.
Yes, do it.
And he asks the computer who are the most decorated Starfleet captains, and we get Jonathan Archer, who is of course Scott Bakula from Enterprise, Christopher Pike, because the Cage, the original Star Trek pilot, I guess is 2 years before this. Is something I've read since we've started doing the show. I didn't know that when we started. Matt Decker from the Doomsday Machine, and I didn't actually remember this one, but I did look it up. Robert April was identified as the original captain of the Enterprise on the animated series. So you could have just had some names that we couldn't even read, but no, they took you could have just had Jonathan Archer and some blur. No. And I just, those little touches, they know their audience,
Oh, you can't, if you're going to throw out like the best captains, you know they're going to be on point about like, we're definitely name checking.
I'm just surprised people weren't angry that Picard wasn't on the list, even though obviously there's no way that they knew that. The computer should know.
Somebody's going to develop the Picard maneuver.
Yeah, the Picard maneuver. I don't do. So, do you get as excited as I do about the little touches?
Yes.
Yeah, there's been some of those throughout the course of the series.
Well, it's their subtle way to connect it without, because other major points have been touched upon that are not matching, but so it's nice when you can be like, here's the links. Which chat room, don't read it right now. There was a spoiler.
A spoiler for next week. Okay, well, we'll talk about next week, chat room. Don't worry, you won't be as upset with us next week.
Yeah, and it's always just, again, like when you're going to do a show that's kind of inject itself back into continuity, early continuity of Star Trek, where it's like you've got all these people that we've known for dozens and dozens of years, all these names. Less so with Jonathan Archer, but still, Robert April, Decker, Christopher Pike, and then we've got Captain Giorgio on there, where it's like, all right. I mean,
I guess she died in the line of duty.
But I mean, I guess it's because it's like it seems weird to have all these ones that we've known for so long, and because now we're doing a series that's supposed to take place.
By the way, I like the idea that the animated series is actually canon because I was never really sure, because it's a little silly at times, like with giant tribbles that don't multiply and just get really big, and but I don't know. I mean, so it's nice to see that there's some respect for that. But anyway. So that's the minutia, but the idea that he wants to position himself as a great Starfleet captain makes perfect sense. And he's like, well, what am I doing? And I like the personal growth that we see at the end where he's, he could run that diagnostic on what he did. And he's like, you know what? I did the best job I could. What did you think, Kari? Did you think that that was... What did you think about sort of the way it played out? His doubts early in the episode and then that he's kind of... found his own. Do you think he'd be comfortable as a captain? Not right now, but
not yet.
Yeah.
He's getting there, but I think he's being responsible and very academic about it. Like, okay, what are previous leaders? What did they do right? Compare me to that, which is a very academic way to look at it instead of that is a way to lead, but I don't know. He'd need to be more fluid than that to be a good leader. You can't just go off like, this is what they did, I need to do it. It's like you need to be your own kind of leader. And so I appreciated that by the end, he's like, nope, it's all right. I made the right call and has made that. He needs confidence boosters. So, he gets his telescope so he feels a little bit better. And then he made his other thing. So he's kind of like, okay, I'm doing a good job. So, he didn't have a total catastrophe, and he saves the captain, so
he was probably so excited walking down the hallway. He's like, I got a telescope. Everything's great. Frank, what did you think? Do you think that Saru could one day be a great Starfleet captain, even though we know the future and we know he isn't?
Yeah, that's true.
He could be of another ship that we don't know about.
That's
true. It's a big universe.
I will say that, I can't really say that he did a lot of the saving with the captain, because the captain did a lot of the heavy lifting.
Well, he did the thing of, analyzing the flight pattern and going, wait a minute, hold on, that's the ship.
All right, yeah.
I probably...
That was a cool moment.
I probably would have shot that ship. I wouldn't have been smart enough. It would have been like, hey, that guy's coming at us, let's get him. That's true, though. Both of you have great points, that he did analyze that, but... Lorca did some really good escaping. That wasn't great rescuing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like Saru's his way of command is where basically once he says something to somebody, they don't exist to him anymore. Because he just ignores anytime they want to respond.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if that's his first time in command, probably not the best way to endear the trust of the troops. your command to you.
Something in the chat there, Kari, was...
well, it'd be more... so Sarah goes, I think I like him as a species wouldn't really work because Star was being captain because his race was built to be prey.
It's a good point.
But then Nolan goes,
that
says racist, but I'm like, I think you mean speciesist because he's a different species, not a race. But it would have to take a lot for him to overcome literally his genetics of being more passive and being confident, which is what he's doing in this episode. Because instead of being like scared and checking his things, he's like, I got this under control and moving forward.
He's aware of his limitations,
yes.
which I think is an important step in being any kind of a leader.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the specifics of the Klingon prison ship. Which
there were some interesting things on that.
There was a lot going on there.
Yeah.
That's a show in and of itself, by the way. And of course, one of the biggest criticisms we've had of the Klingons so far is it seems like it's difficult for the actors to pronounce Klingon with all the prosthetics. So here's a solution: let them speak English.
Yeah.
And Laurel, I did not remember that name. I had to look it up.
Is that the girl though who was with the other?
Oh yeah, that's. But
then how are they?
Oh no, it's that girl.
Okay.
All right. So now see, that's being speciesist. Are you saying that they all look alike?
Well, because the other one was wearing that similar.
No, I know.
But, I had a moment where.
By the way, to be honest, when the episode started, I thought it was her.
Yeah.
I thought it was the same woman from the other guy.
The first moment where you're like, wait a minute, but I will say though, during her scene where she's interrogating him, it was fine to speak, but I didn't like how the prosthetic attached to the lip because it made it too obvious that was not her face.
Right, and I'm gonna bet that the actors hate that too.
Oh, I bet it made it so difficult to talk. Yeah,
but. I think that the everything that we saw going on there, we've got the Clockwork Orange like eyes being propped open and the lights, and we've got the choose your pain, the savage beatings, and little fraternizing with the prisoners.
Sex slave?
Yeah.
More than fraternizing.
Yeah, that's true. And again, this seems like a moment where like, oh well, obviously we're going to see her again because that's a moment where you feel like Lorca ought to have killed her, but instead just a little. She's gonna have a really cool scar next time we see her.
Because it seemed like those phaser, whatever kind of guns they were,
right? The rifles.
They were amazing. If you are gone, not even just like ouch, you're vaporized. But it felt almost like an acid because I kind of had wondered if that would continue into her face and destroy her.
Right. I'm going to feel like it's not because they must have liked the character,
so.
But yeah.
But I think maybe Lorca thought that in terms of like, it looked like she's going to die soon kind of.
Yeah, so that's right. He probably just figured like, let me save my ammo even though ammo's not a concept.
Right.
But
doesn't really matter.
Frank, what did you think of the Klingon prison ship?
It was interesting the way
fun
that
place
it was
to
run.
spend a weekend, maybe?
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I don't know if
that's what you're into.
Interesting. It doesn't get as intense as like saying Picard, with the Cardassians.
Yeah.
So I'd like there are 3 lights. 3.
Yeah. No, I think they just didn't have time for that sort of thing. But it is a good point that it seems to be sort of a slow build kind of torture. They're like, well, you're here for a while, so we're gonna just kind of break you down, and as the other Starfleet officer said, we'll let you heal for a little bit, and then we'll break you down again. Because it's more fun that way if we don't kill you right away.
I'm gonna keep him around.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Not just
and
more fun, but
of course he had to be kept around for special reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like the joke though too of like didn't think we had enough organs for your orifices or something.
Yeah.
Which then I was like, I didn't know humans and Klingons could hook up.
They have.
Okay.
I believe. I don't know, Frank. Does that?
Well, I mean, we've got Dax with Worf. I mean, that's a trill.
That's not a human, but it's a humanoid.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the one I was thinking of, and I'm like, I guess we don't have actual instances of human, but humanoid. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got Paris and Torres on Voyager.
Right. That. See, there you go. So right.
Okay.
Okay. I knew that. They can, but if I had to guess, very carefully.
Yeah, because they did have a baby.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought that the whole thing was very interesting the way it played out, and of course, at the center of that is Harvey Mudd being there, still being there.
I'm suspicious though about the guy he rescued. I don't know why, but I'm super suspicious of him.
interesting.
I didn't trust him as soon as he's going with him and he's on the ship and then he's on the Discovery and I was like, no, something's wrong. I don't know why.
Do you, Frank? Do you think he's up to something? Or
I don't know. I mean,
we don't know much about him, which is true.
You could go either way with that, but I understand the guy's motivations. That he knew it was a 2-man operation to escape, and he just needed to find the right person to join him on this. So,
Right.
I can understand. It's not necessarily he was hanging out there because it was great. He just knew that he couldn't escape with mud for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the great topic that comes up, of course, during all of this is Lorca's previous command and how he escaped and didn't go down with the ship. And, I feel like his explanation makes sense that he didn't want his crew captured and degraded and humiliated. So
Tortured.
he blew up the ship. But how did he get off exactly? Like, there's
That's
still...
never explained.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I'd like to know more about how he killed everyone, but he got out. So I don't know. I find it to be sort of, there seems to be something noble in that gesture, but man, that raised so many questions.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? What did you think, Frank?
There was something about when he's actually captured off that shuttle and the Klingons board it and they take him out, where after they're dragging him out of the shuttle, it pans down, it tilts down, and then we see his
Little light pen
yes,
thing?
that he does that. It's like, we didn't need to really see that shot. It was like, oh my god, he doesn't have his light pen.
Yeah.
If he was taken into the Klingons are going to search him anyway, take away anything he has
They
anyway.
would definitely take that. Yeah.
So
his
it's like
laser pointer.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know why we needed that shot. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah. No, I know. I thought that too. I thought that was an interesting.
Unless it's going to come back. It was one of those, like, it's not, so...
No. I mean, I expected it would be important.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That's
it was
why
important.
we do those scenes.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess that what I was thinking was I sort of forgot what I was thinking. That's the worst part. No. So the idea, though, that we want to know what happened to him, and we ought to find out. But what I like when that's what came back to the light pen was that he explained that he could get that corrected, but he doesn't because he has the reminder that he killed his crew. Even for a good reason, you still did it. Which, I don't know, I think it says a lot more about him that he did that.
Yeah, well, it's one of those on paper sounds like a fantastic idea in
Yeah,
terms of
but
like,
then-
well, your people, you were saving them from torture, horrible death, and drawing it out. It's a mercy kill. But
Yeah.
it is one of those like, oh, that sucks.
And now you're also easier to torture because it wasn't that hard to find out that, you can just, you could basically pick up your iPhone and put the flashlight in his eyes and he's going to be out
yeah,
of
there's
commission.
this problem. But I agree, too. How did you destroy a ship and get away?
I'm pretty sure you can't do remote self-destruct, but, I mean, as poor Christopher Lloyd found out in Star Trek 3, you have to actually be on, I mean, I guess they beamed up. Yeah, maybe he beamed away, but see, it raises so many questions. I'm inclined to still like him, but as we've talked about over the last few weeks, I don't entirely trust him. There's something about this that doesn't add up, but fortunately, I feel like they'll address it before too long.
Probably
I
come
find
back to
Lorca is interesting because he's certainly put himself into a prime position in the Federation. He's been given a lot of leeway and be able to kind of go off and do his own thing. He's I mean, a lot of rope and he hasn't hanged himself yet, even though he is definitely starting to fray on the nerves of some of the Starfleet upper echelon.
Yeah, it seems like his friend the Admiral was, basically humoring him for a while because of the results. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of results we get out of the Discovery. Are they, they're very clear about not doing any kind of eugenics testing on humans. So are they going to go ahead and just put Lieutenant Guy from Rent back into it? I feel like not. I feel
Probably
like...
not.
So are they not going to have this way to travel, which they know works? And they were already searching the universe for more of these tardigrades. So I feel like Starfleet's not going to stop just because it went badly with this one.
There might be other people who are going to do it and test it on their own, or, they're going to find some other, I don't know, a creature, though, you could get to volunteer when it is painful, but maybe they'll figure out how to code it to make it, not something that's sentient.
Well, I mean, we talked about this last week, Kari and I did, and I know seeing what your opinion is on this. That I feel like the detriment of setting it where we have now in the timeline is we know that this is not a viable
Yes.
form of transportation. Would you rather have it set in the future because there's a lot of mystery about whether then you can play the mystery of whether it succeeds or not. Now I feel like you're only seeing how it fails.
You know that it'll fail. It'll be interesting to see how it fails. But yeah, if this was happening after Voyager, Deep Space Nine, etc., and we were going forward, it'd be like, well, maybe this is a new technology that they found, and they're going to try and figure out a way to make it work. I feel like they'll probably figure out a way to use it for a little bit longer on this show. But yeah, we know it's not going to work. It'll just be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my personal preference is I don't know if I want to see, the ruination of an idea as opposed to like, oh, this is a new concept we're introducing into Star Trek, and what if it works, and how does this change what we've seen before? I kind of like that idea. If we're boldly going, I'd rather have like cool ideas being explored as opposed to seeing the destruction of an idea.
I do like how Mudd said that line, though.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
That was fun.
That's funny. When Frank said that, it reminded me. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was
hey,
one
that's
of
just
the things I wanted to highlight.
Mudd said it.
Yeah, when Mudd said, that the arrogance of boldly going where I think he said where no man has gone before, or no one has gone before, either way. The idea that, you're going to piss people off. No one's gone there before, so don't go there. And if you do, you're going to make people angry.
Don't be surprised.
And I think that does give a great motivation to Harvey Mudd. That, I think to some extent he was a much more comic character. I think this guy who has an axe to grind with the Federation as a whole, now he's specifically targeting Captain Lorca. I feel like, he's a much more potent threat. And he asks good questions, It's like, just because space is out there, do you have to go? And as the Klingons said repeatedly, that lie that they always say, the Federation, that they come in peace. It's like, but then why are you here? And, why do you have photon torpedoes if you come in peace? I know you need to be able to defend yourself, but I understand both points of that.
One thing I did like, though, in terms of Lorca's escape, though, is that I felt like the fight between the Klingons and the humans was pretty evenly matched. Because I always feel more often than not the Klingons easily overpower humans. Yeah. That we've seen before. So I was like, I appreciate at least that they had.
I think because they had the element of surprise. I think that they were, and there weren't that many Klingons. I think that sort of a finite amount, and they didn't encounter that many. I think it was nice.
They were not overpowered.
Yeah,
there was not
that was a good escape where it didn't go off entirely without a hitch. But I agree that usually the door opens and it's Klingons, and it's like, okay, so the next scene they're all in chains, and So I actually wasn't sure that they were going to successfully escape, because I'm like, well, it's a Klingon ship and they are human, and there's only two of them. Now, even if they had Harvey Mudd, it wasn't going to help. Sorry, was it?
No, it's all right. I was surprised that the ship works for them and the guns do. Because so many other, even present day stuff, you need your fingerprint or something. So I would almost think Klingons would make it so you cannot fly their ships or you cannot use their ships unless you're Klingon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult if you're not Klingon, but at the same time, Lorca was able to kind of describe how it worked.
No, he's able. Obviously, they figured out, but I had that thought of like,
you should have some kind of.
There's no safety on their guns of like your own.
A Klingon-shaped hand, as instead of a key. But it's a good point. But
because they've done that in other alien things, where the alien technology, like you literally have to be that size of what it is. Though they are similar-ish enough, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, late in the episode, we sort of have, it's not a shocking revelation, but just sort of an interesting moment where, who would have figured that Lieutenant Guy from Rent and Dr. Guy from My So-Called Life would be a gay couple together.
As soon as they were on the bridge with Saru, I was like, yep.
You're like,
they're a couple.
Yeah.
The way they looked at each other, yeah.
And these are not the first gay characters in Star Trek, but I thought it was interesting because it's not a big deal. It's just sort of like, oh yeah, this is them. That's fine, And I don't know. I thought it was a nice moment between them,
sweet.
And it definitely heightens what we saw earlier, sort of the disagreement and the fact that, by the way, Stamets is Lieutenant Guy from Rent's name. But anyway, it's still more fun to call him Lieutenant Guy from Rent. But the order that, he was given was, you make the drive work. And he's like, I'm going to do that. And then I sort of like the idea that I know obviously you would have been upset if I had, put the tardigrade at harm. But the alternative was I hurt myself. So, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think that's really going to add a good level to that storyline,
Well, it's one of those, his partner appreciate it in terms of, like, you made the good gesture instead of hurting something else, but don't do it ever again because I love you and don't hurt yourself.
Yeah. But,
so that was really sweet.
Odds are pretty good. He's already hurt himself enough, and, we'll see more of that.
The injection points for that, man, just do not seem like a pleasant experience.
Yeah, no, because it was sort of like...
It's like your ribs?
Yeah, it was like between the ribs or something. I don't know. It didn't... Yeah, you're right.
Hopefully it's not, you're not a lung, like, in that zone, and your liver, and, it's not central organs, but still, I'd be worried.
Yeah. Well, anything else in the chat we should get to before we wrap up?
No, not yet.
Well,
I would say real quick, the one thing I liked about this episode is so often and not in this type of thing where the captain's in jeopardy and somebody's trying to prove their worth, kind of stepping up into the captain's chair and see how they do. More of the focus is on them and being able to kind of overcome their personal demons and kind of earn the trust of the crew and come up with some really crafty way of saving the captain. I kind of like that it was just more we get to see Lorca on the ship kind of do a lot of the stuff himself.
Yeah, I mean, an obvious parallel would be Best of Both Worlds when Riker is commanding the Enterprise D and Picard has been kidnapped by the Borg. A very different set of circumstances and handled completely differently, but that was also pretty late in the run of the show, and I'm pretty sure Patrick Stewart was making some stink about contract negotiations, so I think that there was some behind-the-scenes stuff going on there. But from a storytelling standpoint, I liked seeing the idea, two very different approaches towards the kidnapped captain. Anyway, I alluded to this, and I mentioned the people in the chat that I know that one of the biggest criticisms people have of this show is that we're always a week behind. So what we're going to do starting next week is we're going to double up. We're going to watch episodes 6 and 7. So next week we're going to do episodes 6 and 7, and then there'll only be 8 and 9, and then the show will be off until January. But we'll be caught up for like 3 shows.
Yeah.
Yay.
But starting next week we're going to do... So I'll have to really organize my notes better because we had to really get through 2 whole shows. I could have kept talking about this one. But, the idea that we would then talk about a second episode right now, we would just never have enough time. But I'm excited to see...
figure it out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where we go and, in the next couple episodes. And I kind of like that I have an excuse that I get to watch 2 episodes in the next week. So there's that.
Are you still enjoying the serialized nature of this?
Yeah, I think it's actually working really well. I think that... when you do serialize like this, it could definitely kind of wear you down a little bit. And it's just like, I just kind of want some... there's enough different storylines happening, Like, a couple weeks ago, we had the Klingon love story, and then we had a brief Klingon sex slave story in the middle of a prison breakout. So there's enough interesting other things going on that I think the serialized nature has worked really well. You sort of have these little mini stories in the middle. What do you think, Frank? Do you think that's working for you? Or?
I'm kind of digging it, but I'm also kind of liking just the... You don't have to worry about like the red shirts or just like the Starfleet Officer of the Week.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the person that Lorca brings on is not going to be part of the crew, something you may not ordinarily see because it's like, oh, he wasn't a part of the cast right at the top, so he's just going to be somebody that Lorca has rescued, who's helped him out, and then they say, shake hands, and he's off back in another ship on Starfleet, kind of sailing on his way. I like the idea that we're just kind of subtracting and adding to these crews in ways that you don't often see in Star Trek.
Kari, are you finding that it's working week to week?
I think it definitely keeps my interest, and I like that there's the bigger arcs that are going on, but then there's other little storylines, and the little tiny tidbits where you're just like, wait, what? Such as the sex slave one, because it was one of those, wait a minute, like it takes you for pause, and you go, okay.
Yeah.
But even just the way they jump around the galaxy and the creature and thinking of that and like, wait, are there other ones? And then when it went up and outside, I was like, wait, can it survive? And there's other random things that you have to ponder.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, there is a lot to think about with this show, and I don't know. I mean, it's there's not really much that I'm enjoying as much as this that's on right now. Certainly not anything new. You know, I mean, this is one of the better new shows that I'm just happy it happens to be a Star Trek show, which it had been a while. But yeah, I am enjoying it. I guess the biggest thing to sort of circle back to the beginning with the F word, I'm like, well, what are they going to do in the other episodes? I don't. This moment isn't really that big a deal, but I'm like, what are they going to try and do? You know?
Do you think it'd be fine if it doesn't come back again because this moment was a moment of an outburst, not necessarily colloquial?
Yeah, I'll probably forget about it by the end of the series if you know. But it's just, are they going to build? You know, and like, how violent is it going to be? Things like that. But again, that's all in keeping an eye on what happens. And we'll be keeping an eye for next week when we do, as I mentioned, episodes 6 and 7. I forgot. I just get all confused. These numbers are hard. But so we will see you next week for Star Trek Weekly. I'm Christian Bladt at Christian DMZ, and you can see Kari and I tomorrow night for Marvel TV News. It's just going to be me and the ladies, so we're going to pick some of our favorite females in the Marvel TV universe. You didn't even know that till right now.
All right, now I got to start like looking them up and remembering which ones I like better.
Rosario Dawson.
Yeah,
and where can people find you?
Yes. Yeah, you guys can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's KARIDLANE.
And Frank?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and everybody in the chat. Thanks everybody for watching. We're always getting great feedback on the show, and hopefully we'll get better feedback now that we're going to be caught up. And we'll see everybody next Sunday at 10 Pacific.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.